Hey everybody, and welcome to BingeBot, where we recap all the latest and greatest TV shows to help keep you in the loop. Today it's time for a thrilling tale of suspense in the sky, as a negotiator's skills are put to the test when a plane is hijacked, leaving him to save the day. Hey, if you enjoy our content and you want to invest in our continued success, consider supporting us through YouTube memberships, Patreon, or Buy Me a Coffee, and you can unlock some cool perks along the way. Enough of that though, let's get on with our recap of Hijack Season 1, starting with Episode 1. Final Call. Under the command of pilot Robin Allen and First Officer Anna Covert, Flight KA-29 takes off from Dubai, heading to London with 216 people on board and scheduled to arrive in 7 hours. Among the first-class travelers is Sam Nelson, an exceptionally skilled business negotiator, returning to London in an attempt to reconcile with his estranged wife, Marcia, even though she explicitly told him not to, as she's moved on and is now in a relationship with a police officer named Daniel. Regardless, Sam's still hopeful and has even bought her a gold necklace, which he keeps in the overhead compartment. While everything seems normal on the plane at first, things change when Naomi, a girl in the economy class, heads to the restroom and is surprised to find a bullet on the floor. Understandably disturbed, Naomi returns to her seat and shows her two friends what she's found. Noticing Naomi's distress, a friendly man named Terry approaches and asks what's wrong. Recognizing that Terry's been kind to her and even helped her with her luggage, Naomi trusts him and hands him the bullet, leading him to assure her that he'll take it to the flight attendants to see how they respond. Instead of doing that, however, Terry heads to first class, ignoring the flight attendant's instruction that he must stay in his section. There, he approaches another passenger, Stuart, and quietly informs him that there's a problem with their plan to hijack the plane, as one of the passengers has found a bullet that one of their crew must have dropped. Aware that this could jeopardize their operation, Stuart commands Terry to put on a green hat, which will convey to the rest of the crew that they must begin hijacking the plane in 5 minutes, rather than waiting several hours into the flight as originally planned.
I'll be back wearing that and make sure every one of our lot sees you. And whatever you tell the girls, it's only got a hold of 5 minutes. We go on Jamie's call like we practiced.
Following Stuart's orders, Terry dons the green hat and heads back to his section, signaling to the three other hijackers, Jaden, Jamie, and Lewis, to take over the plane in 5 minutes. Returning to Naomi, Terry reassures her that the attendants told him not to worry about the bullet, as it was simply dropped by a soldier on board. Unconvinced by this explanation, the girls decide to ask an attendant, Arthur, themselves. Unfortunately, just as they finish telling him about the bullet, the 5 hijackers emerge from their seats, brandishing guns and aggressively shouting for everybody to stay put.
Stay in your seats! Do not move! Sit the down! Stay in your seats!
As the passengers grasp the terrifying reality of the situation, a sense of hopelessness settles in as the hijackers take all of their phones and electronic devices, cutting off all means of communication. Once Robin spots the hijackers on the cockpit security camera, he wastes no time reporting to Dubai's air traffic control that there's a security incident on the plane. Understanding that they need to access the cockpit to establish complete control, the hijackers reveal that they've been monitoring Robin's movements for some time, which is how they know that he's having an affair with Colette, one of the flight attendants. Showing how merciless he is, Stuart drags Colette in front of the security camera and forces her to speak to Robin through the intercom, where she tells him that she loves him and pleads for him to open the door or else she's going to be killed.
Tell him you love him.
Robbie, they know.
Say it!
I love you.
I love you too, Colette.
Despite the strict rules that the cockpit door must remain sealed during a hijacking, Robin realizes that he loves Colette too much to lose her and begins reaching for the switch. Noticing this, Anna attempts to stop him, leading to a fight between them, culminating in Robin striking her in the head with a metal bottle until she's knocked unconscious, allowing him to open the door. Now under Stuart's control, Robin calls Dubai's Air Traffic Control, or ATC, once more, and this time he informs them that the security incident he reported has been resolved, explaining that it was just a couple of drunk passengers playing a stupid prank, and asserts that Dubai should take no further action as everything's perfectly normal on the plane. As a result of this, the hijacking is now in full motion, and no one on the ground even knows that it's happening. Episode 2, 3 Degrees. Knowing that there's no reason for Robin to be in the cockpit anymore since the plane's on autopilot, Stuart forces him out. and seeing that Robin's now seated in first class, Sam cleverly invites him to play an in-flight video game on their individual screens, which allows them to secretly send each other messages and come up with a solution to the predicament. Once the plane enters Iraqi airspace, Baghdad's ATC attempts to make contact several times. Realizing that they must respond to reassure Baghdad that everything is fine, the hijackers return Robin to the cockpit, forcing him to explain that he was in the restroom and Anna couldn't respond promptly due to trouble with the radio.
I just nipped out to the bathroom for a minute.
But where was the co-pilot?
We've been having a lot of radio problems, so we're not exactly covering ourselves in glory this morning.
With that issue resolved, Stewart commands Robin to leave the cockpit yet again. However, before stepping out, Robin secretly rotates the navigational dial slightly, revealing that this was the plan he and Sam had crafted together. Thankfully, this tactic proves effective, as British air traffic controller Alice Sinclair grows suspicious after piecing together several unusual events surrounding Flight KA-29, including the report from Dubai that the pilot had reported a security incident but later claimed it was a false alarm. Then, Baghdad's ATC informed her that they had difficulties communicating with the plane, both occurrences that are highly uncharacteristic of a seasoned pilot like Robin. And the final red flag comes when Alice notices the slight deviation in the plane's flight path, making it clear that Robin's covertly trying to inform them that the plane has been hijacked, and this is his distress signal. Episode 3. Draw a blank. As Sam contemplates his next move, another first-class passenger, an Army veteran named Yusuf, informs him that he suspects the guns the hijackers are using hold blank bullets, intended to scare the hostages but can't actually cause harm. Still, Yusuf stresses he can't be certain of this without seeing the bullets. Hearing this, Arthur steps into first class when the hijackers aren't watching and tells Sam that Naomi had seen one of the bullets. Recognizing that this could be useful, Sam asks Yusuf to draw two illustrations on a piece of paper, one of a real bullet labeled A and the other of a blank bullet labeled B. Taking advantage of the service carts that are now moving through the cabin as Stewart's allowing the hostages to have bottles of water, Sam discreetly hands the paper to the lead flight attendant, Divya, while receiving his water. In turn, Divya passes it to Arthur, who then slips it to Naomi, asking her to identify whether the bullet that she found resembled A or B.
Not in the middle of the day. Should we switch it off? Are you sure?
Yeah, we're all sure. Aren't we, girls?
Once he's received an answer, Arthur returns to Sam's seat, but before he can deliver any result, he's interrupted by Stewart, who's noticed his suspicious movements in the economy section. Thinking quickly, Arthur explains that he was simply calming a crying girl seated in 23B, while emphasizing the B as he speaks, subtly conveying to Sam that Naomi confirmed the bullet was indeed a blank. Soon after, one of the hostages, Nasir, rises from his seat to get his uncle's medication from the overhead compartment, and spotting this, an infuriated Jaden strikes Nasir down, igniting a heated altercation between Nasir and his cousin against the hijackers, during which Lewis gets stabbed in the side with a pair of scissors. Amid the chaos, a woman called Kate's alarmed to see that her daughter Lizzie has left her seat, prompting Kate and a young woman named Sheena to get up and search for the little girl. With the hijackers distracted, Sam sneaks through the aisles until he reaches the catering section, where he ambushes Terry by slamming him with a metal drawer. In retaliation, Terry kicks Sam and breaks a glass coffee pot, ready to stab him with a jagged edge. Unexpectedly, another passenger, Johnsy, arrives to help, landing punches on Terry, allowing Sam to grab a fire extinguisher and spray it into Terry's face. Faced with this sudden assault, Terry picks up his gun and takes aim, prompting Johnsy to retreat. Despite being at gunpoint, Sam stands firm and even taunts Terry into pulling the trigger, knowing that he won't do it as he would expose that the gun holds blanks. Yet, despite his confidence, Sam's suddenly shaken as the sound of a gun firing echoes through the plane. Episode 4. Not Responding. A moment after the gunshot rings out, it becomes horrifyingly clear that it was Stewart who shot and killed someone, revealing that his gun holds real bullets. As the passengers hastily return to their seats, Kate desperately crawls through the aisles, frantically searching for her daughter until she finds her unharmed and quickly brings her back to their seats. Glancing around, Kate notices that Sheena's seat is empty, leading her to the tragic realization that it was Sheena who got murdered. Now aware that Stewart has a loaded gun, Sam's forced to surrender. After being tied to a wall, he watches as Lewis approaches Devia, seeking treatment for the stab wound that he sustained. Fearing that the injury is too severe for Devia to properly bandage it on her own, a terrified Lewis allows her to free Sam so that he can apply pressure to the wound while she wraps the bandage. Despite their best efforts, the wound proves too critical, and Lewis continues to bleed heavily. Expecting the worst, Lewis asks Sam to take his phone from his pocket so that he can say goodbye to his mother. Listening to Lewis emotionally explain to his mom that he's dying and telling her that he loves her, Sam realizes that he's just a normal kid who somehow got caught up in a terrible situation. Because of this, once Lewis hangs up and starts coughing up blood, Sam urgently yells out for help. Hearing the plea, a doctor called David, who is also Kate's husband, rushes to assist. Seeing Lewis struggle to breathe due to air trapped in his chest preventing his lungs from expanding, David realizes he lacks the necessary equipment to treat him. Forced to improvise, David grabs a pen and takes it apart, before driving its hollow tube into Lewis's chest, creating a small opening to release the trapped air and allowing him to breathe more freely. Meanwhile, on the ground, British Home Secretary Neil Walsh is walking towards his car when a stranger unexpectedly approaches, hands them an envelope, and walks away. Inside his car, Neil opens the envelope, only to be stunned to find that it contains the demands of the true masterminds behind the hijacking. Episode 5. Less than an hour. Once Stewart arrives, Sam watches Lewis admit to him that he called his mother. Yet, an interesting detail catches Sam's attention, as Lewis says, "I phoned Mum," instead of "I phoned my mum."
I phoned Mum.
As soon as he hears this, Sam realizes it must mean that Lewis and Stewart are brothers, especially since Stewart seems genuinely worried about Lewis's condition. With this in mind, Sam persuades Stewart that they must land immediately in Hungary, the country that they're currently flying over, to get Lewis the treatment that he needs, since he won't survive the 3 remaining hours until they reach London with just a pen in his chest keeping him alive. And while Sam assures Stewart that they'll take off again as soon as Lewis is transported to a hospital, he's well aware that once they land, the Hungarian military will storm the plane, putting an end to the hijacking. Surprisingly, once Lewis hears about this, he pleads with Sam not to land, warning that the people orchestrating the hijacking want everything to proceed flawlessly, and if anything deviates from their plan, they'll murder the families of all of those involved, including Sam's.
We need to stop it, the landing.
We can take off again.
We can't, they must stop us. If we don't stick to the plan, they'll kill us, our families, your family.
My family.
We sent your passport details down.
Please. Please. No landing.
Knowing Stewart might still land the plane just to save him, Lewis decides to take his own life by pulling the pen from his chest, stopping his breathing in a final attempt to prevent the people behind the hijacking from killing their mom. Tragically, while Lewis's sacrifice ensures that there's no longer a reason to land prematurely, it does nothing to save his mother, as she's already ended her life by throwing herself in front of an incoming vehicle, knowing she'd soon be killed anyway. As the British authorities scramble to find a solution, they receive help with the arrival of Neil, who begins reading the letter he received aloud, finally explaining the reason behind the hijacking. A few months ago, 2 men, Edgar Jansen and John Bailey Brown, were imprisoned for leading an international criminal organization known as the Cheapside Firm, which engages in various criminal activities including drug, weapons, and human trafficking. As a result of their imprisonment, Flight KA-29 has been hijacked, and the only way to ensure the safety of the hostages is to release Edgar and John before the plane arrives in London. Otherwise, all 216 people on board will be killed. Episode 6. Comply slowly. Realizing that he has no other option, Neil decides to release Edgar and John and even provides them with phones and a car, allowing them to drive away. To ensure the police won't disrupt their escape plan, Edgar sends a text to Stewart ordering him to execute a hostage and send a photo of the body. While Stewart initially tries to strangle Devia, Sam intervenes, reminding him that Sheena's already dead so they can just send a picture of her body. Once Edgar receives the picture, he instantly forwards it to the authorities, making it clear that any interference with their escape will not be tolerated. Unfortunately, Edgar and John find themselves stuck at a traffic checkpoint, leading them to believe it was deliberately set up to slow them down, despite it being a pure coincidence. And growing paranoid, Edgar texts Stewart again, instructing him to execute yet another hostage. Reading the text, Stewart completely loses his temper and forces another female hostage onto the floor, ready to shoot her. but not wanting any more people to die, Sam decides he has no choice but to fight, leading him to lunge at Stewart, preventing him from firing the gun, and begins to grapple with him, trying to disarm him. Inspired by Sam's bravery, Jonty suddenly pulls out a plastic bag and attacks Terry from behind, wrapping the bag tightly around his head and choking him. A bold move that serves as a trigger for many of the other hostages to rise up and take on the remaining hijackers. As the fight rages on, something no one could have predicted happens. A woman named Amanda, who's been quiet for the entire flight, enters the restroom and pulls a gun out of her bag. With the gun raised, Amanda purposely walks to the front of the plane and upon reaching the pilot, shoots him in the face. Without missing a beat, she steps inside the cockpit and locks the door behind her, claiming control of the plane. Episode 7. Brace, brace, brace. Seeing what just happened, both Sam and Stewart are stunned as Stewart confirms that Amanda is not part of his crew. Noticing that the passengers have overpowered the other hijackers, Sam convinces Stewart to hand over his gun and surrender. Now that Sam has the only loaded gun, he declares that the hijacking is over, but they still have to deal with Amanda, with just 1 hour until they reach London. While thinking of a solution, Sam receives some unexpected insight from a passenger, Alec, who confesses that he's the one who smuggled the hijackers' weapons onto the plane in his bag, as the criminal organization's holding his family hostage. When asked why they picked him, Alec explains that he's a stock trader and reveals the hijacking wasn't just to free Edgar and John, as there's a financial aspect as well. Due to the criminal organization leaking to the media that the hijacking is currently happening, the airline stock prices have plummeted. Because of this decline, Edgar and John are making a profit thanks to a trading strategy called short selling, which basically means that they had made a bet the stock would drop. Therefore, the more the airline stock declines, the more money they stand to make. So far, Edgar and John have made tens of millions of dollars, prompting John to suggest they should be satisfied and proceed to their escape helicopter, but Edgar insists they must wait, as there's still more to be made. Recognizing that Edgar always wants to do things his way, John approaches their henchmen and informs them that they must go ahead with the next step of their plan earlier than expected. The henchman, understanding the order, immediately walks up behind Edgar and shoots him in the head. With Edgar out of the picture, John finalizes the short sell, cashing in his earnings, and makes his escape. As the passengers receive their devices back, Sam checks Amanda's phone and discovers she has a 16-year-old daughter named Elodie. Realizing that this is his key to entering the cockpit, Sam writes what would Elodie want on a piece of paper and holds it up in front of the cockpit's camera. Once Amanda sees this, she's moved and decides to call Sam on her phone, knowing that he has it. In a sorrowful tone, Amanda confirms what Sam already knew, which is that her family, including her daughter Elodie, is being held hostage by the criminal organization, and that she was ordered to take control of the cockpit as soon as she received a text on a secret phone that she'd kept hidden for the entire flight. According to the plan that Amanda was given, once Edgar and John completed their escape, they sent her a second text instructing her to land the plane. However, if they don't send her the second text, she is to crash the plane in the middle of London. And this is why Amanda's terrified, as she's been trying to contact Edgar to get permission to land, but she hasn't received any response, which means she's supposed to crash the plane. Now that he fully understands the situation, Sam would typically use his negotiation skills to manipulate Amanda into letting him inside the cockpit. But instead, Sam finds himself empathizing with Amanda. Being a parent himself, he recognizes that if he were in her position, he would too do whatever it takes to protect his son, even if it meant crashing the plane. This is the heart of the problem though, as Sam is forced to deliver Amanda with the agonizing truth that Elodie will be killed either way, as according to Stewart, the criminal organization has a strict policy of killing all of their hostages to avoid leaving any witnesses behind. Which is evidently true, as the organization even murdered the security screener who helped them smuggle the weapons onto the plane in Dubai, along with her family, despite her full compliance. Now that she tragically understands that Elodie's fate is already sealed, Amanda decides she should land the plane, knowing that the other passengers also have families who'd be devastated if they died. With this newfound clarity, Amanda allows Sam into the cockpit, and they contact London's air traffic control, where they're connected to Alice, hoping that her guidance, along with Amanda's aviation experience from her time in the Navy, will help them land. Nevertheless, as Alice begins giving instructions, Sam notices that Amanda's visibly panicking. Realizing that she's terrified about being arrested for killing the pilot, Sam asks Alice to connect them with somebody who can assure Amanda that she won't face legal consequences. Thankfully, Neil's already on the line and steps in to promise Amanda that she won't be charged for the pilot's murder, understanding that she was coerced into it.
So, Sam, if what you're saying is true, then Amanda will face no charges.
Who's that? Sorry, who is it?
I'm Neil Walsh, Home Secretary.
With this reassuring news, Amanda becomes more composed and responsive to Alice's instructions. But this doesn't mean that they're out of danger yet, as the plane's fuel is depleted, leading Alice to inform Amanda that she must glide towards the nearest runway. As all the passengers hold the brace position, the plane approaches the ground, barely skimming above the houses before finally hitting the runway. Despite Sam slamming on the brakes, the plane tumbles on the tarmac at an alarming speed as they have no reverse thrust to slow down, causing the front landing gear to collapse and the nose to crash down. The remaining tires screech violently, shooting sparks into the air and igniting explosions until the plane ultimately grinds to a jarring stop. Finally, on solid ground, Divya gets out of her seat and opens a door, instructing everyone to leave the plane. And as they exit, they spot fire trucks and ambulances racing to their assistance, while armed units take control of the hijackers. Having ensured that everyone got off the plane soundly, Sam gets ready to exit as well, but remembers that he left something behind. Re-entering the plane, he retrieves the gold necklace from the overhead compartment, only to notice the door of the plane shutting once again. Bewildered, Sam looks over and discovers that Stewart's managed to free himself from the zip ties, leading Sam to understand that Stewart's still on board, ready to enact revenge on him for interfering and ruining the hijacking. Armed with the 2 loaded guns, his and Amanda's, Stewart starts hunting for Sam, who keeps hiding around the plane, doing his best to dodge the bullets Stewart fires at him. Knowing this might be the end, Sam sends Marcia 2 texts in all caps. The first says he's sorry, clearly for causing her distress and ignoring her advice not to get on the plane, which would have kept him out of all of this chaos, and the second text, however, is a desperate request asking her to call him. Sensing urgency in Sam's texts, Marcia promptly calls him, and hearing Sam's phone vibrate in the restroom, Stewart rushes in with his guns brandished, expecting to ambush him. But Sam's one step ahead, having placed his phone in the restroom while he hid outside, which allows him to appear behind Stewart and slam the door into him repeatedly until he drops the guns. Thankfully, at that moment, the armed units storm the plane, capturing Stewart and finally allowing Sam to get out to safety. That's it for Hijack Season 1. I'm definitely curious to see what happens in Season 2, so don't forget to swing back around to this recap for a refresher before the next season drops. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, consider dropping us a like or sharing the video with a friend, and if you want to see more content like this on a regular basis, subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new video in your feed. Thanks again to all of our YouTube members, our patrons, and Buy Me a Coffee supporters. Your continued support really means the world to us, guys. Well, we'll be back with another recap soon, but until then, BingeBot is logging off.